of female virginity. So in Islam and Christianity, believers are enjoined to remain chaste before marriage. But we're talking about patriarchal societies in the Arab region where boys will be boys and men have sex before marriage, and people largely turn a blind eye. This is not the case for women. You are expected to turn up on your wedding night with your hymen intact. And what's interesting is that is how virginity is defined, by a piece of anatomy, an intact hymen, the appearance, rather than the reality, which is a state of chastity. And there are many, many ways that this plays out, but one of the most graphic I encountered was that I was working with a fantastic outreach group in Morocco. It's called ALCS. They are trying to prevent the spread of HIV in Morocco. So they do outreach to female sex workers. And one day we were out in Casablanca, and we met two young girls in a bar, and they were turning tricks in order to make some pocket money. And when the outreach workers told these young girls, look, really you should use condoms to protect yourselves, the young girls said, no, we don't need condoms. We specialize in anal and oral sex because we want to get married, and therefore we have to be virgins. And the way that they defined virginity was an intact hymen. In the name of an intact hymen, they were opening themselves to a world of trouble, including HIV.
So you do have a sort of sub-chapter, I suppose, in the book called The Sore Spot. And, you know, that is referring to anal sex. And, you know, can you speak a little bit more to the rising prevalence, or if there's a rising prevalence, of anal sex in the Arab bedroom? And also, you know, perhaps allude to the surgeries that some women are undergoing in order to avoid it.
So, about anal sex, about almost all sexual practices, we don't really have a handle, as it were, on the frequency. We don't have a Kinsey report for countries in the Arab region. We desperately need this sort of robust quantitative research which really transformed the discussion of sexuality in America and the West. We don't have that yet. We're hoping for this sort of freedom of thought and freedom of academic freedom in the years to come. Nonetheless, certainly anecdotally, one hears women complaining about anal sex. In Sunni Islam, anal sex is considered to be haram by most religious scholars, and this is based on a particular verse of the Quran. Nonetheless, there are often wide interpretations around verses in the Quran and other central texts to Islam, and so people can interpret it in different ways. So certainly we do know in the case of young people that very often they are turning to anal sex in order to preserve the hymen. There are a number of other ways, measures that young women take to either keep their hymens intact or indeed try to restore a reasonable facsimile of a hymen. And the surgery that you're referring to is hymenoplasty. This is, in its simplest procedure, is a quick stitch across the cervix so that at the time of consummation of the marriage, there will be resistance and bleeding. It will seem as if there is an intact hymen. Now, I have to tell you that I know of young men in Egypt who have wisened up to this and are actually waiting to consummate marriages for a few days because they have heard that these stitches absorb back into the body, and so they want to see if their bride is the genuine article.